In the year 2023, President Emmerson Mnangagwa established the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development. And one of the key mandates of the ministry is to conduct a nationwide skills audit that feeds into the human capital development component of NDS1. Hello there and welcome to Face the Nation. I'm Justin Matlatla. Today on the program, I'm joined by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development, Ambassador Rudo Chitiga. Ambassador, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Justin.
Now, to kickstart our discussion, what does this nationwide skills audit program entail and how does it contribute to Zimbabwe's objectives?
A skills audit is really to find out from each of our sectors what are those competencies and skills that we require to achieve a certain goal. Zimbabwe has a goal of the Vision 2030 of being an upper middle class society. What will it take to achieve an upper middle class society in terms of workforce and human capital? In each of the sectors, so for example, in the agricultural sector, the agricultural sector has an ambition of achieving food security for all, for achieving surpluses in different areas. What workforce do they require? What do they currently have, and what is the gap? And it's identifying what is required in terms of the supply, the demand, but also what do we currently have. And then the gap between the supply side and the demand side becomes the skills gap that then determines all the skills development that we carry out in the country.
It looks like it's intensive. You have mentioned an example of the agriculture sector, and when you look at agriculture, the whole agricultural value chain, it's extensive. You look at the production, processing, the consumption, and so forth. How do other ministries come in with regards to this skills audit exercise? How are you going to implement the whole of government approach?
A skills audit by nature is a whole of government approach. It has maybe not just a whole of government, in fact, it is a whole of society approach. Because the agricultural sector, for example, has the government, has the private sector. And even within the government, you have the energy sector, you have the financial sector, you have the agricultural engineering sector, you have the Ministry of Agriculture itself, and all its agricultural associations. All of them are stakeholders in this. In addition, Zimbabwe has the ZimStat, which is our National Statistics Bureau. And that is the guide for all the work that we do in terms of labor force surveys and labor supply surveys. So it is the private sector, the industries in agriculture who will all be involved. So the first step really is to do a stakeholder identification, bring all the stakeholders together, and then agree on the priority areas, because the agricultural sector is wide.
It is.
And it may not be possible to cover each and every discrete area in agriculture. But the stakeholders will tell us what are those critical key sectors or components of the sector that should be covered, which take care of the rural, the urban, and everyone.
And just to build on that, Ambassador, what demographics are we looking at in terms of the population? Is it for the working population, those who are at work, who are employed? Is it going to cover the private sector or those who are self-employed? How are you going to really make sure that everyone is included in this exercise?
It's a workforce survey. So it's those that are at work. But the results affect those that are still at school. If, for example, we find out that there is a shortage of agricultural engineers, the universities will then begin to develop courses and training in order to fill those gaps that we will have identified. So although it may be focusing on the current workforce, including those who are in the informal workforce.
Okay.
Because the agricultural sector, as I said, is the whole value chain, as you said. So there are people who are engaged in agricultural value chains. When you look at people keeping chickens, That's the informal sector, actually. I don't think they are very registered, but they are part of the agricultural value chain. And those are actually areas that bring in gender, because most of the people who keep chickens and poultry farmers are women. And so you are, in fact, working on gender, you are looking at young people, you are looking at the formally employed workforce as well as the informally, the self-employed people. They are all part of that sector.
And still on the same concept and issue of inclusivity, the leaving no one and no place behind mantra is very topical, guiding each and every step of government as we speak, including the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development. How will this policy guide your operations as you conduct the National Skills Audit?
If I remain on the agricultural sector, the Ministry of Agriculture already has a program of 35,000 village business units. Already we are leaving no one behind in this program. And within the audit, we then have to look at, in order to achieve these units, what skills are required? What competencies should the promoters and all those people who work in that, in those units have? And that will take care of the people at that level. The agricultural unit also looks at irrigation. And most of the irrigation schemes are in the rural areas. So you are already covering not just the big farms, but also the small farms.
Yeah, it's interesting that also as you are speaking, you have sort of indicated an inclination towards agriculture. Does that imply that the National Skills Audit is going to start with agriculture and perhaps move to other ministries or other sectors at some stage?
Agriculture is the biggest sector of our economy, and it is the biggest enabler of employment. The majority of the workforce is in the agricultural sector. The agriculture is the source of most of our industrialization. So it is a sector that moves from the seed development to the ground, to the farmer, to the storages, to the food producers, to industry. And I used to say kuti up to the vedovi vanogadzira. So in fact it is a whole value chain. And so it involves different sectors of not just the primary sectors but also the industrial sector. So you see already we have the Ministry of Industry with us, we have the agricultural people with us, we have the statistics, we have the universities. All of them are part and parcel of the audit.
That's Ambassador Rudo Chitiga, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development, as we unpack the mandated National Skills Audit that the Ministry will soon undertake. Let's take a break. We'll be back. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation, and on the program, Ambassador Rudo Chitiga, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development. We are unpacking the soon-to-be conducted National and Comprehensive Skills Audit. Now, Permanent Secretary, the National Skills Audit, as you said earlier, it's about identifying skills existing, required or missing, and then the gaps and addressing those gaps. But this is all being done to make sure that Zimbabwe accelerates towards Vision 2030. Can we relate this skills audit and Vision 2030? What exactly is the picture that you intend to paint after the skills audit with regards Vision 2030?
At the moment, we have, look at NDS 1. we have key deliverables, key pillars and priorities in NDS1, and we are in the process now of looking at the priorities for NDS2. And as we do so, we also get advice on what budgets we will need to plan within for NDS2. But we have never asked ourselves, what workforce do we require to achieve value addition? Okay. What workforce is required for industrialization? What workforce is required for a digital society? The ministry will, working with the NDS2 planners, provide a skills profile that accompanies. So for the first time, we will say these are our priorities and these are the skills that will enable us to achieve these set objectives, rather than just have an objective and outputs. Right now we have the middle part, which is the skills that we require. We need to identify them from the start. And if they are not there, we then develop programs to fast track, either through scholarships, through special programs at universities, in order to completely ensure that we have the workforce that will enable us to achieve Vision 2030.
Out of interest, where do you think Zimbabwe stands at the moment in terms of its skills base?
I think the skills base of Zimbabwe is, if I would say, varied. We have a number of skilled workforce which is not documented. Skills development is a big activity in the country. But also you have to remember that the informal sector does most of the skills development that we see in the informal sector. But we don't document that. Our universities, our polytechs, the Ministry of Youth, the Ministry of Agriculture, they are all engaged in skills development. Our skills personnel are highly sought after across the world. And you know, most of our technical people, particularly in the STEM areas, as well as in the medical areas, are highly sought after. True. So we are skilled. This is a country which highly skilled persons. We may not have the right skills for the needs of industry in terms of the stages at which our industry is at the moment. We may need to look at improving the training systems. Do we have enough tools to train people for an automated industry? Those are the questions that we are asking as we review the skills development architecture and what is required in order to ensure that our workforce adapts to the technological changes. Are our training schools now equipped to train people for the digital age? Or we still have machines from 1970 or wherever? So this is a priority. Working together with the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, the Ministry of Youth, we are all looking at retooling our training centers, particularly the vocational and technical centers.
An interesting aspect from what you have just said is the issue of skills misalignment. You have said we have skilled people who are in high demand locally and elsewhere, particularly those in the medical and engineering and science fields. How does the pending skills audit address issues of skills misalignment in Zimbabwe?
I would like to call it a mismatch. We are training people without enough conversations with the industry. And by saying that, I'm not saying that industry knows what skills it requires in 5 years' time, because technology is changing very fast. So there is need for more collaboration between industry and the skills development institutions to think together, to explore together as technology keeps changing. How do you meet the demand? Industry says it takes them almost 12 months to get a graduate work ready. How do we ensure our education system brings to the market a work ready graduate? And a work ready graduate means that there is a lot more emphasis on skills development. Maybe the attachment program does not do enough skills development, because right now we have the work-related learning, and our assumption is that that is where the skills development takes place.
Yeah.
But that is not fully achieving that goal. And we need to see why not. Is it the absorption capacity of industry? Is it the instructions that we give to industry as we deploy our children? So those are some of the areas that the ministry, together with the other skills developers, are looking at.
Honorable, we are now in the era of the fifth industrial revolution. We are still to fully immerse ourselves into the fourth industrial revolution of technology. But now the fifth industrial revolution is upon us. How does the skills audit concept also come in to make sure that Zimbabwe embraces the fifth industrial revolution?
I think first and foremost, we have to fully adapt to the fourth. And the fourth is about technologies, about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the digital age. And once you have that, the fifth comes with the relation between people and machines. And we are looking at mindsets. We are looking at soft skills. We are very well educated in our technical areas, but sometimes we lack the skills of teamwork, strategic thinking, strategic planning, problem solving, negotiating. Many times we sort of say to ourselves, takavhagwa paya paya. We need to have those negotiation skills, which are not necessarily taught in school. Good communication skills, emotional intelligence, and being able to navigate this world. These soft skills in future will determine the success of any person in the workforce.
Well, interesting indeed, Permanent Secretary. We are taking a break on that note. Join us when we return. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Face the Nation. Now, Ambassador, as we plan, as the country prepares and braces for the upcoming national and comprehensive skills audit, as you said, let's look at the rapidly changing job market that is influenced by technological advancements. How will the national skills audit fit into that and ensure that there is continuity in terms of Zimbabwe's ability to adapt to the rapid changes on the job market?
Thank you, Jesse. One of the things that the skills audit also looks at is future projections. But how far into the future we can go also depends on industry and our universities working with us. The ministry will have a forecasting role where we will work with the Ministry of Labor and other institutions to forecast the trends that are coming in terms of new jobs and new occupations that are coming. The World Economic Forum has just released Jobs of the Future and highlighted some of the jobs that will no longer become obsolete in the near future, but new jobs that will be coming that relate to AI or that control and manage the AI. And those are the sources that we will be relying on, but also our own estimation. Many countries now have, and we hope in the ministry, we will form partnership with one of the institutions of higher learning to have a center for jobs of the future. I know many countries now have a center for jobs of the future that is beginning to forecast and begin to inform learning, to inform education, to inform skills development, as well as to inform industry. because sometimes not all industries are au fait with technology and what is coming. And so we need a center that informs all of us, both industry and the supply side.
Now, PEMSEC, looking at the current infrastructure across Zimbabwe's socio-economic sectors, do you think we are in a position to quickly adapt to the trends that you are explaining in terms of adaptability to the trends in the job market, technology, to quickly adapt and perhaps say in the next 3 or 4 years, Zimbabwe could be getting closer to countries like Dubai, countries like Singapore, Korea? How far do you think this skills revolution will take for Zimbabwe to get there?
I think when you look at Zimbabwe, we have now become very stratified. There are people who are technologically at the same level as these countries you're talking about. And then there is the rest which are still behind. You see on my desk, I still have paper. There are many places which are paperless.
True.
These are just the basics. In the school system, there are schools in Zimbabwe which no longer have notebooks. The children come with their iPads. But there are schools in Zimbabwe which have never seen a computer. So we have this gap that we need to close. And you see, His Excellency has been the President has been going around donating computers to schools because he sees the need to digitalize the country. The Ministry of ICT is also working on that. The Ministry of Skills Development, we will be working on skills, digital literacy. In order for citizens to access government services, we need to have the digital skills. And one of our first courses on digital skills will be on the 20th of February at Baba Fields, where during the the National Youth Day, So during the celebrations, we are going to be doing an introduction to digital skills for youth. But together with the Ministry of Youth, we can have a massive program on digital skills. So there is the catching up. I think Zimbabwe has a catching up to do. But that is not to say all of us are behind. And so we already have benchmark. We can benchmark with people here, with institutions in the country. You go to the banks now, the bank tellers have disappeared. Banks are digitalized. We are doing online banking. So there are aspects of our lives that are very
advanced.
Very advanced. I could also be, what do you call it, when you put your phone on a machine and then you pay through your phone. This is happening in Zimbabwe. But when you go to Mupinwa Shotoka school or hospital, that is still very far. So the catch up, and again using the mantra of His Excellency the President, leaving no place and no one behind, this will what will drive our priorities in the digital skills.
Now, with regards the National Skills Audit, what mechanisms are there for the public stakeholders to give some input as well as feedback as you carry out the exercise?
I think the exercise is a very active exercise in that, first of all, as I said, we will identify the stakeholders. We also need to come up with a robust communication strategy and messaging so that people know that we are not checking their qualifications, and people think skills audit is auditing certificates and making sure you all have papers for what you for what you do. But also to explain, yes, of course, we will, if we find ghost workers, we will. But that is not the main object of a skills audit. The skills audit is auditing supply, demand, and the gap based on an ambition. And in this case, we have the Vision 2030. But that ambition has to be communicated and also dialogued with different people. When we go to the informal sector, we have to dialogue with them, even just explain their own understanding of Vision 2030 at Glenview, the furniture, what will they be doing in 2030? What machines would they be using? What skills would they require to catch up with the furniture requirements or the manufacturing requirements of 2030? So it's not just the industries in big places. I think we, in an informalized a society like this, we need to dialogue with everyone. So stakeholders have a voice, and I think we will need platforms where we are communicating, getting feedback, getting ideas, because what we think is necessary or is important today may change as technology changes. It means we have to change the goalposts very quickly. That's what we will be doing.
Pemsek, it's been a pleasure having you here on Face the Nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse.
That was the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Skills Audit and Development, taking us through the soon-to-be carried out nationwide skills audit by the ministry. I want to say thank you again for having been part of this discussion. Until next time, have a pleasant viewing.